So Dinamo have finally sacked their manager, and we are left with a very difficult decision to make. In fact, I'm going to abdicate responsibility for it to you. So Yaroslav Vesely has lost their job as Dinamo coach. In truth, they've been on absolute terrible run. They have not won since we had the mid-season break. Lots of those games have ended in defeat. They've exited Europe. They've lost games against clubs that you think ordinarily they would beat, like Rudesh, who are bottom of the table. Slaven Belupo have got a draw with them in their most recent game. That was the straw that broke the Dinamo board's back, and they have sacked their manager. But whether we should move to them or not is incredibly complicated. We're going to try and explain all now. Make sure you're paying attention at the back. This could get complicated. So, Dinamo are currently in 9th place in the league. They are closer to relegation than they are to qualifying for European football. We, in contrast, are in 5th place in the league. We are comfortably ahead of Istra in 6th. We are quite a way behind Varaždin in 4th. We've got 7 games to go until we reach the end of the season. Now, the first thing you're probably thinking is, why would you jump in at Dinamo and try and take them from 9th to 5th? You're never going to be able to do that. It is a fool's errand. Stick with Lokomotiva. That is your best chance of getting European football. My friends, it's slightly more complex than that. 5th place in the league are only going to qualify for European football depending on the winner of the Croatian Cup. And it's the Croatian Cup that's creating a little bit of a twist. Because of the 4 teams that have qualified for the semi-finals, 3 of them are currently outside of the European qualification positions. In fact, one of them, the team that will be facing Hajduk, are not even in the 2nd division of Croatian football. They are down in the 3rd tier, the unplayable division in Football Manager. Dinamo, in contrast, have a game against Slaven Belupo. The form they're in, you'd think that would give Slaven an equal opportunity at qualifying for the final. But with Dinamo having a new manager in charge by the time that reached that semi-final, it could well be that we might finish 5th if we stay with Lokomotiva, and either Slaven Belupo or Dinamo, or heavens forbid, even a non-league club, beat Hajduk in that final, and then we are left finishing 5th with no European football to contend with. Our other option is we apply for the job with Dinamo. If we get it, we'd have to try and reel in Lokomotiva, our former club, make up 12 points with just 21 left to play for. Realistically, that isn't going to happen. But we could try and gamble on making it to a cup final and then beating Hajduk in that final. On what a game that would be for the cameras. And if we were to win it, we would grab a spot in the Europa Conference League. Now, the plot thickens even further, because if we stay with Lokomotiva and probably Dinamo, but possibly Slaven Belupo win the cup, there would be no European football for us next season, which either means the quest ends or we are left trying to scramble around to find another job, probably in another country, because I don't think any of the clubs that do qualify for Europe from Croatia would be looking for a new coach. So we'd have to go and look at other nations that we could manage in. Now, you may remember Norway is already off the table as Bodo Glimt reached the final of the Conference League a couple of seasons ago. And there's a chance that one of the other nations that we have loaded who have never produced a European finalist before could go and produce one this season. Young Boys have a quarter-final in the Europa League against Nice, and Slavia Prague from Czechia have also reached the same stage. They are going to be taking on Aston Villa. I think we are safe in the Conference League, as all of the countries that have produced quarter-finalists of the Conference League are from nations that have already reached a European final. But it is in the Europa League where it could be a Young Boys versus Slavia Prague final. And if we haven't got European football with Lokomotiva, or if we've moved to Dinamo and not won the Croatian Cup, it could be that both Switzerland and Czechia and Norway are off the table as we apply for another job for the final seasons of the quest. and we might be faced with the possibility of trying to take a team from Gibraltar to a European final. So here is what we are up against. Dinamo, if we were to apply for the job, are offering a wage bill of £525,000 per week. Their finances are listed as okay, so you would assume that they have got some semblance of a transfer budget that we might be able to use to try and attack a final season. They also have no shortage of valuable assets that we might be able to cash in on as well. They've got a player valued at potentially £12.5 million, and there is interest in that player. They've got other players that could be valued at 10 million, 6 million, 9.8 million, 6.6 million pounds. Another one down here potentially worth as much as 9.8 million pounds. And these would either be valuable players that we could shape a new squad around, or players that we might be able to cash in on to give us a real transfer kitty in our one season at Dinamo. And what a story it would be. Having been floundering around like a fish on the shore for 8 seasons now in the quest, if we jumped in at Dinamo for one final glorious campaign, took them from relegation candidates to the title next season, and reached the final of the Cup, won it, and even qualified for the final of the Europa Conference League. Now, by contrast, Lokomotiva have currently got a transfer budget of £141,000. There is £2.8 million in the bank. They've got a transfer budget of just shy of £2 million. We could do some sliding around here and get the wage budget up to £168,000 per week. But you will see that that still is dwarfed by the wage budget that we would have available at Dinamo were we to apply, were we to get the job. Our own transfer values are not quite as high. You'll see that our top player, Bartel Cardrum, is valued at potentially £5.6 million, although we might struggle to realise as much of that. Certainly should fetch at least £3 million on the open market. We've got players like Craswell, Daniek, Adarabayo, Vasquez, Traore. They've all got decent residual values. We'd have to make some big decisions in the summer if we stayed with Lokomotiva and qualified for Europe as to whether we would want to cash in on some of those prized assets or try and build our squad for next season around them. Some of our players are eliciting some transfer interest. Alberto Mari is wanted by Norwegian club Brann. Willy Kambwala is also wanted by a Norwegian side, the ones that have just knocked us out of Europe, Mulder. So this really creates this complex, diverse situation where if we move to Dinamo, there's a good chance that we'll get relegated and won't qualify for Europe. If we stay with Lokomotiva, even finishing 5th might not be enough to qualify us for Europe. And if we can't find European football with a club from Croatia, it could well be that Norway, Switzerland and Czechia are all off the menu as we look for another team to move to. So here is what we're going to do. We are going to apply for the Dinamo job because there's no guarantees that we will even get it. The favourite for the job is a 3-star coach. In fact, I think we will show them to you. The favourite is Matthias Almeida, who is currently manager at AEK Athens. So that would, I guess, mean that they would have to pay a fairly healthy compensation fee for them. They're on £24,500 a week. They are a 3-star reputation coach. However, we should not be overwhelmed or intimidated by that, because we are a 3-star coach ourselves. So we are the equal of Almeida, and we would probably require less compensation were we to get the job than they were to get the job. So we're going to fast forward. We're going to go to the interview, see how it goes. And it might be that Dynamo are not even interested in us anyway. And so the plot thickens why we've been waiting for Dinamo to decide whether they're going to offer us an interview. Both Young Boys and Slavia Prague have won their quarter-final ties. They are not facing each other. Young Boys will face Anderlecht. Slavia Prague will take on Mulder. And there's a good chance both of those might make it to that European final. So staying in Croatia and getting European football looks like it takes on increased importance. To that end, Dinamo have offered us this job interview, and we are going to try and get in there and throw all the charm we possibly can their way. We're going to try and make sure that every single answer we gives us every opportunity to try and secure this position. Are you perhaps looking to move on from your current job while things are going well? Well, that is very much open to interpretation, and your stock is high. I think we should say that we're looking to take the right step in our career, as we've done a good job there. Is it fair to say you haven't done a great job with the media? Well, I'm not sure. I've not spoken to them in seasons. I'm going to say I haven't had any complaints. Are you able to ease our worries about losing the backing of your players? There are troublemakers at every single club you go to in Football Manager. Let's tell them that we'll have no problems. We're going to make all the promises if we get the Dynamo job. Want to ensure that the dressing room atmosphere is much better. Let's promise them again. We need a manager who can work with limited resources. This is Dynamo we're talking here. We're hoping for pretty decent resources. I'll just tell them that I will do the right thing with the club's money. We're happy with where we are right now. You're on the verge of getting relegated in your Dinamo Zagreb, but we're now looking for someone capable of taking this team to the next level. Can you make that a reality? Now, I think it would be absolutely suicidal to say I think the club has been overachieving. I guess we've either got to go with the arrogant, my reputation speaks for itself, or the almost inquisitive, I just think I've got enough about me as a manager to get it done. I am going to go with brash confidence. Would you be able to take charge straight away? I am ready, because I want to take you to that cup final, hopefully beating your fiercest rivals, Hajduk. What sort of budget are you anticipating needing to put your backroom team together? I'm going to say that I don't wish to propose any changes ahead of taking over. This is our long-term vision. Maintain the club's status as the most reputable team in Croatia. Grow the club's reputation. I'm just going to agree with those. We've got no expectations for this season. Are there any requests that you have? None whatsoever. And so concludes our interview. It could take a week or two. Let's see whether they bite. So we've gone on a few days. We've just played Gorica and won 1-0. The game before that, we played Hajduk and we were incredibly unlucky. They scored 3 times with just 4 shots on target to put themselves 3-0 up. We then raced back and got a couple back before the break. But in the second half, we weren't able to make the breakthrough and get the equaliser. But we're actually playing pretty well, and I've tweaked the tactic a little. But we've also got our friends over at Dynamo have played a game, and they've beaten Hajduk, who were going for the title. So they have picked up a little. Their next game is going to be against Slaven Belupo in that cup semi-final. And they have come and approached us. A wage of £3,300 a week lies in wait for us. A transfer budget of £9.5 million. An increased wage budget compared to what they advertised of £575,000. And a squad with plenty of assets that we could probably sell to make that transfer budget even larger. But it would be a huge gamble, as if we take this job, we're either banking on, with 15 points left to play for, us having an 11-point swing versus Lokomotiva, or banking on winning the Croatian Cup final. That final would be 2 legs. It would probably be against Hajduk Split, who are battling on 2 fronts. And if we don't qualify for Europe with Dynamo, it would mean that we've jumped from Lokomotiva and they get that final place in the Europa Conference League. If we stay with Lokomotiva and whoever takes the job at Dynamo takes them to that cup final and wins it, then we will be left at Lokomotiva with no European football next season. And add into the mix that clubs from Switzerland and Czechia are both in the semi-finals of the Europa League, and it begs the question, what on earth do we do next? And I am going to make a decision probably based on what people down in the comments suggest that we should do. Stay with Lokomotiva, gamble at Dynamo. If it goes wrong at either of those clubs, we'd have to try and find another job in the summer, or just admit failure and the quest would end, and it would have been beyond us to take a club from a nation that's never produced a European finalist before and take them to a European final for the first time. Let me know what you would do down in the comments below.